Hi everyone, this is the Real Wakili, Marvel Oloo, and this is the Real Wakili podcast. Every week I interview people who have gone through asset seizures, legal disputes, and tax disputes in regards to their property. Today I'll be interviewing a very special guest, one Mr. Onyango Oloo, who was the Secretary General of the National Alliance Party and the Speaker of Kisumu County Assembly here in Kenya. Mr. Oloo, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Nice to finally meet you here. So let's just begin with your story. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much. Not much to say about myself, but in public life, as some of you may be knowing, I have held several positions. One, I was the Secretary General of the then ruling party, the National Alliance of the Jubilee Coalition. And at one point, I was also the chairman of the Lake Basin Development Authority. And at one point, I was also the speaker of the Kisumu County Assembly, amongst other things. Other than that, I'm presently a farmer, but professionally, I'm a lawyer of over 35 years standing.
Wonderful, Mr. Oloo. Now, let me get straight to it. You faced a number of legal challenges very publicly, including being charged by the EACC for corruption. Part of that was having your assets seized by the government, awaiting the investigation. Thankfully, you were acquitted this year, I believe. I would just like you to share with your audience how this happened and how you got into this position.
Thank you so much. I would say that in 2013, when the Jubilee Coalition, of which the National Alliance was part of, formed the government, the President of the Republic, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, appointed me also as the chairman of the Lake Basin Development Authority. After a year and a half in that position, my term came to an end. I had been appointed for barely a year and a half term. It was like to continue the term of the then sitting chairperson. And after that, during that period, we undertook a very, very big project, which was the construction of the Lake Basin Authority Mall in Kisumu. And after that, I just left and went back to my usual duties as the Secretary General of the then ruling party. And a few years ago, we wound up the party, and I crossed over and joined ODM and was elected as the Speaker of the Kisumu County Assembly. And so far, so good. Things were running okay, no problem. And unfortunately, as the as the Speaker of Kisumu County Assembly, I get the real taste of what now the Gen Z group have been calling the budgeted corruption. I bump into a situation where the Kisumu County government want the assembly to endorse illegal issues, want the budget that was illegal, hiding quite a number of things to be passed. And I stood my ground and said, no way, we are not going to pass this kind of budget. Return it to the executive so that they must ensure that it complies with the law. And I think at that point, one must recall that the government had metamorphosized, and the ODM party was now part of the government, and so they were very powerful. And the first year I rejected, once the assembly had executed the budget, they brought to us a budget that did not reflect what was in the Hansard, and I refused to sign it. And until there would be a compliance with what the Hansard said and with the law. They didn't bother about it. They went and executed it without the speaker's signature. But I think I had stepped onto wrong toes. And when the next budget was coming, I was being warned that I should just pass it. And I told them, even if you bring another one, it will be wembeni ule ule. You will have to comply with the law, otherwise implement it without my signature. Unknown to me, a very senior politician in this country was the beneficiary of those loopholes and those issues in the budget. And so soon, the EACC pounded onto me. There were claims I started seeing in the papers that while I was the chairman of the Lake Basin Development Authority, that we had looted the authority, that the project kind of did not take place, and that probably money was lost.
Okay.
And so, to cut the long story short, one day, the EACC, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission of Kenya, gets to my houses in Kisumu, my house in Nairobi, and they seize literally all my valuable documents. Because I had always maintained my innocence and I didn't think there was anything wrongdoing, I never bothered to hide a single document. I think that was my biggest mistake. So they ended up taking all my logbooks, taking all my title deeds, taking all my share certificates, taking even my client's documents. As I've told you, I am a lawyer. So you wake up one day, all your documents have been seized by the government authority, and they go ahead and block all your title deeds, meaning you cannot transact, you cannot sell your property, you cannot charge your property, you cannot lease it. Literally, you cannot do anything. And within a very short time, we are charged. We are charged with a multi-billion theft or conspiracy to defraud. We were originally over 50 people charged, both those who were in the management and the board, that we had conspired and stole about 4.5 billion Kenya shillings. Actually, that charge metamorphosized. At some point, we had stolen 6.7 billion. At some point, it came to 3.5, but it finally settled at about 4.7. And the 51 of us were arraigned in court. As time goes by, I think at some point, the then Chief Justice castigated the DPP, or the Department of Public Prosecutions, that you cannot charge all this number of people. Yeah. So they continued releasing people, until finally we remained only 13 people charged with corruption cases. Chief amongst them was conspiracy to defraud, leading to a loss of 4.5 billion. That is to say that we had stolen from the government 4.5 billion. We had executed several other malfeasance in relation to the project.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that very concise breakdown of how you ended up finding yourself in the crosshairs with the government, specifically with the EACC. Of course, we are happy to see that you were eventually acquitted and that you were absolved of all the wrongdoings that you were accused of. What I found most striking about your case was that the EACC seized assets that you even acquired in the 90s. Assets that you did not even manage, you even had even before you began your term at the Lake Basin Development Authority. Why do you think that is? And what's the remedy for that, in your view?
Thank you. In fact, let me tell you, amongst those I was charged with, we had the architects of the project, we had the engineers of the project, we had the quantity surveyors of the project, we had several board members of several and varying professions. Yeah. And because this project is a project that we had successfully executed, even when we were hearing that it was under investigations, nobody panicked. So it was not just me alone whose property was seized. Yeah. These engineers' properties were seized. The developers' properties, and this is someone who deals in property, were seized. This engineer, the quantity surveyor, all the cadres of people, we were literally rendered useless in terms of property-wise. And I can tell you, it is unfortunate that for 6 years we would religiously go to court to hear this case go on. And after about 11 witnesses, not a single witness had mentioned any of the people who were charged with anything related to this offense. And then all of a sudden, one day, the government wakes up and tells us that they want to withdraw the case.
Okay.
And that they have seen nothing wrong with the project. And that they have realized there was no money stolen. That at the end of the day, the Attorney General had approved every step of what we did. And that they realized one of their key witnesses was actually the person who signed all the vouchers when we had long left the authority. Personally, and a few of us, I refused that they could not withdraw the case, that the case must continue to the end so that I'm absolved. But because the government, I think it was not in their interest, because the witnesses started mentioning names they didn't want to be mentioned, who could have probably conspired if any loss took place, the government was insistent. And so when we put our power strong refusal on the withdrawal, the magistrate had to very wisely come up with a ruling that while he was allowing the withdrawal, he was also acquitting us under Section 210. Why I've brought that to your attention is to bring to your viewers' attention that you don't have to be guilty. Sometimes it was just a conspiracy to destroy you. Now, the most interesting thing is this. As I've told you, I'm a lawyer. So I was always laughing at them when they came to seize my property because I knew there's nothing they could do with them, because I knew these were all properties that I had acquired genuinely. I was very, very wrong. And that is the mistake I would tell Kenyans, Africans, and everybody in the world, that never think if you are right, the world would believe you are right, or that you will benefit from the legal processes. Amongst the properties, or 90% of my properties that were seized were properties that I had long acquired as a practicing lawyer when I was not even in government. Amongst the properties that they had seized, some are properties, the title deeds were actually written in my clients' names, not mine. And properties, some that were issued even in 1991, over 20 years before even my appointment.
That is very scary.
Amongst the properties that were seized were documents or title deeds of properties that I inherited from my grandfather and my father. And among the properties that they seized were properties that you could easily tell these things had nothing absolutely to do with the Lake Basin Authority or with my appointment. But when they came, they took them. And I still laughed because I knew my rights. I would go to the High Court, and the High Court would agree with me, because even the warrants that had allowed them to seize my property had only specified that they should take properties that had relationship or were related to the Lake Basin Development Authority. Now, all these properties, none of them was related. And even when they disclosed the documents they were going to rely on in the criminal case, yes, none of my properties, zero, was in the documents that were disclosed as being used in the trial of the criminal case. So I went to the High Court to show these people that I knew the law and that the law was on my side and that my rights would be honored and that the courts of law would uphold justice. How wrong I was. The then judge of the High Court, Justice Mumbi, agreed with them that they had every right to seize all my property, including the ones that I acquired 20 years, 15 years, 10 years before the event that was being investigated or prosecuted. The court agreed with them that they had the sweeping rights to pick anything they want. And that far, my fate was sealed. My properties were seized. They were frozen. They were out of reach. And it's therefore meant I could not use those properties. I could not pledge them for credit. I could not do businesses. While the criminal court had even said that nothing stopped me from holding my position, The politicians to whom I had been a stumbling block went ahead and choreographed an impeachment. So it means I was also jobless now. Don't forget, later the court was to say the impeachment was illegal and I have to be paid, but that is done 6, 7 years later. So your properties are seized, you are jobless, you have no income. Remember, one of the principal reasons for which we acquire property is that at an hour like that, you could use them, you can sell, you can use them to start new things, but here you are completely rendered impotent and incompetent insofar as raising capital to even start a business, meaning the government had descended upon us, not with a view to administer justice, but with a view to punish us, criminal or innocent. And so, not only me, my colleagues, the contractor of the project, the engineers of the project, my board members, the architects, the innocent government officers whose role was simply to sit on the board. We had 6 harrowing years. You had to know and see how you could survive. Before they did that, they had actually raided our bank accounts. I woke up one day, and unfortunately enough for them, they were unable to find the billions or the millions in my account, so there was nothing to freeze. But I wake up one day to find Standard Chartered Bank had told me, no, they could now not continue with the harassment EFCC was subjecting my accounts to. They also closed that account. Including my wife's accounts were closed on account that she was related to me. So I want you to imagine, you don't have a single property you can rely on. You don't have a single asset you can charge or pledge to someone to give you money to do any business. You don't have a job. Even if you had any savings account, that one is also locked. You are there as sitting duck at the mercy of the state until such a day that they may deem it right to give you a property. To make the matters worse, the court acquits us and decides and makes a ruling. Release all their properties. Release everything that was attached in relation to these things. In fact, on their own account, they had stated that they have no evidence. They have realized this was against public interest, that it was an abuse of the process, the government itself. I'm now almost doing how many months? Almost another 3 months. They have not released those goods up to now, meaning even as I'm doing this interview, literally, I'm still in that position that government agencies and its officers wanted me to be. Simply because I made one mistake. The properties were in my name. And they were in my name because I bought them with my sweat. They were in my name because I knew I acquired them legally and no amount of pressure could take them away from me. But the government, through its connivance, through its corrupt officers, were able to still come hard on us and stop us and block us from using them as we had hoped that someday they may be of use to us when need be.
Okay. Thank you for that very detailed explanation. I'm of course sorry to hear that you had to go through that, and for you and your family. I think a question I can just have to you, rather just a comment, seeing as you're someone with relatively high political exposure, you're a man of influence and wealth compared to most Kenyans. What hope do average Kenyans have, or what trust should they have in the institutions based on experience? What do you think they should do? Should they not register property in their names? What's the way out? What's the solution? How can we solve this country?
If you are anybody who has a single property, even if it is just a piece of land somewhere, let's talk of in Turkana or anywhere, if you are anybody who has any relationship with a government official, if you are anybody who has any transaction with the government, and by the way, if you are any Kenyan, know that your country is under state capture. And it is not under state capture that began with the current government. Our institutions have always been under state capture. The EACC is the greatest scam in the fight against corruption. Our courts, you only pray that you land before a judicious magistrate or judge. Otherwise, there are judges who will receive phone calls and will do as the state wants when they come pouncing on you. My advice is, and I wish I knew earlier, I've told you the people we were charged with, not all were government officers. Some were innocent people who were just doing their job. We had engineers who were in the private circle, we were in the private sector. We had young men who were just working in the institutions that had contract with the government. All their properties were seized. So long as you are a Kenyan and you know you are a Kenyan and you know that, get to know that your institutions of governance are strictly under state capture. And they can be used to harass you, intimidate you, and the courts, which should be your bastion of help, will not help you. Be wise. Register a trust. As I've said, that I am presently in the process of registering a trust so that I could gain the benefits of detachment from my properties, so that my family could be safe no matter what happens to me, so that someone would not take advantage because he wants to punish me. He ends up punishing my entire family. Let him deal with me as a person if he wants to deal with me, so that I would save myself and my family and those I care for from pecuniary and financial embarrassment, while all my life I've been living trying to put my house in order so that I don't suffer pecuniary embarrassment in my old age. But because someone thinks he wants to teach you a lesson, and because we have got inept officers, public officers, because we have got a corrupt EACC, they are able to bring you down to your knees. I'm putting up a trust, and I'm going to systematically transfer my properties to the trust, establish the beneficiaries, do proper clauses to protect the property from state interference and from overzealous officers whipping their noses into it. By the way, quite a number of the people we were charged with, these people were shameless. They were reaching out to them. Why don't you give us some of your property? Then we can influence your case. Personally, I know nobody even dared, because they knew my character was not that such that I would keep quiet with that such nonsense. But I know the people they reached out for properties to, so that they could be acquitted. My advice to the public, you don't have to be a public officer to register trust. You don't have to be in government to register trust. You just have to be a human being with a genuine desire to acquire property, to consolidate yourself. Do register a trust. It may protect you, it may protect those you love, it may protect your future generations.
Thank you so much. I think at this point, I'd like to thank my guests and my audience for taking the time to listen to the Real Wakili podcast. I thank my guests, Honorable Onyango Oloo, for making the time to share part of his story with us. And just seeing him go through what he went through inspired me to really zero in on helping Africans and Kenyans protect their wealth in this country. We need to change the narrative. We need to change the norms. We need to find ways to pass on wealth to the next generation. What has been happening is not okay. We need to find ways to make sure that our children and our children's children end up eating the sweat of our labor. And if that means we have to protect it from all the forces that may be attempting to subvert their destiny, to subvert their legacy, I chose that as my purpose. So thank you again for watching, and follow us at The Real Wakili on TikTok. We're also on YouTube. You can search us as The Real Wakili YouTube channel for more insights and more stories such as these. Thank you so much. As always, death is promised, protect your legacy?